we are at the Maplewood, honey. Where the hell are you? Almost country club to play for you, just like we said we do. These cowboy hats and pickup trucks make a fool of you. Well, here we are at the Maplewood, honey. Where the hell are you?
Folks gathered here at Maplewood Tavern in good old Alpena. We got Don and Henny Ketterat playing the guitars. There we go, fellas.
The History of Maplewood Tavern by Carol Spicer Ketterat, the granddaughter of Henry Peter Ketterat and Orpha Edna Smith Ketterat. The year is 1924. Letters of intent and letters to attest to the character of Henry P. Ketterat were sent to the township of Alpena. The permit was issued to build the dance hall. This was a time that is called Prohibition. I should note that this big white house on the corner of Lacombe and French Road is also a residence. It is grandfathered in, and there is a permit to say the home is attached to the business. Maplewood Inn later changed to Maplewood Tavern by order of the state of Michigan. Why? Because my grandparents were told they didn't have rooms to rent, so thus the change of name. Maplewood was built in a few weeks while the family lived at their home just east on Lacombe Road. Grandpa had the help of his two brothers, neighbors, and hired help. As I said, this was a dance hall. Folks paid 25 cents to dance 3 dances. 10 to 12 musicians provided the music. A few of the names that I'm aware of is Ann Kolonuski, Barney Morey, Walter Bartolome, Izzy Nijveski, and later years, Bill DeSarmo. There was a special built rounded bump out in the center of the back of the building. No spirits were sold inside, but bootleggers did a good business outside of the building, no doubt out in the connecting field. There was many arguments and fights, and it seems my Uncle Alvin, the oldest son of Henry and Orpha, was the bouncer. The sheriff was called out to quell so many fights. On one of the officers' visits, he gave Grandma Orpha a billy club and told her to learn how to use it. I saw her use it as a threat, but she never actually ever hit anyone. That club is still located in its special place under the bar. The last time I saw it, Clarice was having her pictures taken with it. Clarice is my mom. Before the building was wired for electricity, the power was supplied by what was called a Delco plant. There were outside chemical toilets. Yes, there was one for each gender. The indoors became later, as if when we read on, you'll learn how and when. Henry Peter Ketterat was an elected road commissioner. So there was a second income in the household. He was also about the only Democratic Party person to get elected to anything, as Alpena Township was mostly Republican. Henry Peter passed in 1932 at the age of 51. His death was a total surprise. Funeral was held at the tavern, and his casket was placed in front of what was then the bandstand. I was told there were cars and folks lined up to attend the funeral service. He was not only well known, but well respected. Henry and Orpha's children's names are as follows: Alvin, Richard, twins Donald and Dorothy, and my dad, Henry Vernon. The story leading up to Grandpa's death goes like this. He returned from a trip into town, and on the way home, he encountered a train crossing at Silver City. He outran it as it was oncoming. When he reached home, he stood in front of the kitchen sink and clutched his chest, saying to Grandma Orpha, "Get my heart pill." She tried to put the medication in his mouth, to no avail. Folks who knew grandfather thought his death would come behind the wheel of an automobile. That proved to be wrong. I'm also told Grandpa Henry was one of the few folks that owned a really nice car. There was another resident of Maplewood. Her name was Imogene Smith, my great-grandmother. I have a copy of a contract between Henry and Orpha and Imogene that says she will live out her years with them. She passed away in 1932. Her funeral was also at Maplewood. Maplewood was a dance hall from the time of opening in 1924 until 1933, as Prohibition became history in 1933. And Orpha is now running the business, and the Tavern applied for a license to sell beer, wine, and soda. Even back in those days, getting permits was not easy to attain. With the passing of Henry and Orpha was left a very young widow to run the business. She hired Aunt and William Andrus to help her. He was Andy to everyone who knew him. He was the only grandfather figure that I ever knew. He was with us until he passed in July of 1963. Andy was a jack of all trades. He is part and parcel to helping the business run. He was a lumberman by trade. He kept the fires burning and several sources of heat. 2 in the house, a pot-belly stove in the bar, and a big furnace that burned not only wood, but also coal. Andy cut, moved, sawed, split, piled, and hauled the wood. And in the winter, he shoveled the snow. In the summertime, he planted a huge garden. Part of his garden supplied wonderful strawberries and raspberries. In the winter, the family men and Andy went down to the end of French Road and cut ice for an ice house. I got to watch that activity. The ice house was filled with sawdust that Mr. Andrus accumulated from the wood he cut. One of the ice vats is still in the back room at the tavern. Andy also kept a coop of roosters and hens, all of whom at some point became Sunday dinner. We are not sure how old he was when he passed. We think in his 80s or 90s. I will tell you that when God made Andy, he threw the pattern away. I love the man and I miss him to this day. He just had a way about him that everyone knew him and loved him. I had a teddy bear made from a sweater that I had given him for one of his last Christmases on this earth. Andy passed away in July of 1963. On September 6, 1940, Henry Vernon Carteret and Clarice Kramer married at Trinity Episcopal Church. They were both 21 years of age. Mom stayed in her home just up the road, a stone house that is still there today. She waited for a month, as it was the thing to do in respect to her father who had passed earlier in that year. Upon moving to her new home, she started her career as a bartender, working alongside her mother-in-law, Orpha. She brought into the world 2 children to live and grow up at Maplewood, myself in 1942 and my brother Henry Lee in 1948. I'm told Grandma Orpha said it was time for indoor plumbing, as I was due, and so Maplewood got indoor bathrooms. With the birth of Henry Lee, we now have these folks living in the big house on the corner that's also a tavern. We have Grandma Orpha, Dad Henry, Mom Clarice, and my brother Henry and Mr. Andrus. In August of 1996, Grandma Orpha passed away from a heart attack. Complications from diabetes. In her will, Grandma Orpha deeded the business to my mom and dad because that was the reason we continued to live with her, and upon her death, they would take ownership of Maplewood. Originally, we were to move to a place on US 23 North. I was happy as I didn't want to move away from Maplewood. For me, this was the place that I'm told, and I do have memory of some of the last dances when Grandma would bring me to the dance floor dressed in my night clothes. That was the signal that I was headed for bedtime. I'm also told that I slept through the music and then would be awake, so I had to be held by Mom so Dad could sleep. Mom made Grandma a promise. Remember, I told you earlier, and here it is. She promised her that she would continue to keep the business running as long as she could. My mother, Clarice, kept that promise until the day she passed. My dad had a job at Besser Company from 1940 until his death in August of 1964. He was part of a country band in the late 40s. He and his band played Fridays and Saturday nights and Sunday afternoons at the Red Top Tavern up near Rogers City. The name of the band was the Mountain Rhythm Boys. The threesome was Bernie Scott, and Donald and Henry Ketterat. This band made music venues all over, and especially on WATC radio show, taped and played on Saturday mornings. I've been asked where my music ability came from. Now you know. My dad. Mom could have been a wonderful musician, but she was kept busy tending to business. I'll tell you more about this family and its music later in writing. Dad passed away in August of 1964, exactly 8 years to the day after his mother, Orpha, passed. He was 44 years old. He passed of major heart issues at home while asleep on the sofa. Only his pet dog, Jed, knew something was wrong. Dad passed within a few feet of where his father had passed away in 1932. His funeral was at Trinity Episcopal Church. There was standing room only. All the flower shops in Alpena were sold out of flowers. Another observation, both Dad and my brother were just about the same age when their fathers passed away. At this time, I was married to Richard Spicer. We never spent another night at our home. We moved into Maplewood to help Mom, as she too was now a young widow, repeating the history of her mother-in-law. The promise Mom had made to Grandma, as I said before, is now at her doorstep, and she had told her mother-in-law, I'll keep the business running and in this family as long as I can. While I lived with Mom, my home was being built at the end of 40 acres due west of the bar. I pretty much ran the business again for 16 months. I say again because I wanted waiting on customers when I was 16. It was legal because my parents owned the business. I learned much about life in the antics of patrons who would have taken advantage of me had I let them. This feisty gal that I am and was made their ideas go away real quick. When I moved out of Maplewood for the last time, I continued to help Mom. By then, Julian Grinkovich was dating Mom. He took on much of the responsibility at the bar, which was now open for 6 days a week, and all those heat sources needed to be tended to. By this time in our history, my brother Henry is married to Carolyn Gilbert. He is called up to serve in Vietnam, and while he is out of country, his first daughter, Melissa Grace, was born. She now becomes a resident of the house, and Maplewood is filling up again. In 1971, Mother and Julian married and brought to Maplewood his children, Donald, Judy, Gary, and Linda. Julian's day work was at Huron-Portland Cement, so like my father, Julian had a regular job. In 1970, I became a mom to my one child, Richard Earl Spicer. He is named for my favorite uncle and godfather, Richard Earl Ketterat. I was pretty much out of helping at the business. I did drive Mom to town every Thursday, and we had average of 15 stops, most of them for the bar's needs. The bar was still running 6 days a week. Julian retired, though, in 1984. Now the bar went down to be open 6 months of the year, as Julian and Mom spent 6 months at their home in Florida. In 2004, when Julian passed away, it was now time for Henry Lee Ketterat to take the reins. He had much work to do, as things in the old space was just that, old. Henry and Penny worked to bring the place in order. Henry pushed the walls back to expose the long closed dance floor. Now you can see the original floor and the bars at ceiling height to hold the walls in place. The place has become pretty much a museum. It has its ghost too. That's another whole story. So old is new again, and folks come from near and far to visit. As you continue to read, it is to have told a story. I can only explain to you what I know about my own experiences, and those I know to be true, factual, and of course from my memory of those stories told to me. Henry got his first taste of carpentry in school. At age 16, he did a few hours of work at my home, working alongside Jim Stinson and Dick Mansfield. He established his own business, Cataract Construction. Carolyn and Henry had another child, Marion. After 10 years of marriage, they were divorced. Later, he married Barbara Smith. They were divorced in 1995. In the meantime, music became part of our lives. Henry found the guitar, I found the auto harp, and later the bass guitar, and much later the keyboard. Marion got involved in music using her voice in country and bluegrass music. Her instruments of choice, the mandolin and the auto harp. Melissa is a karaoke gal, and Carolyn plays the auto harp. How did we get to this place in life, and where are our roots? I started playing at the age of 8 years with a very few lessons. I was in our family band from age 14, playing accordion and piano. I played a wedding with Dad and Uncle Don just 1 week before Dad passed away. At that point, I gave up music. Henry put 2 bands together in the 1980s. The Age Difference and Whiskey Bent. We were still having jam sessions at Maplewood with local musicians. Big Sam, Harold Bates, the Madsons, Clint Kirchhoff, to name a few. We could always put a band of musicians together, spur the moment, and have a good time. Even with no internet, words traveled fast, and the tavern was alive with party people, especially those who loved live country music. As I start forward in 2004 until now, the 2020, when this was written, we are now hosting many musicians that are welcome. Their only pay is applause and the appreciation they are given for sharing their talents. So many have come, so many have already passed away, and many are still with us, but the roster is getting smaller. 2020 is the year of unforgiving, unhappy things happening to people. The virus, COVID-19, has taken its toll. The old White House on the corner of French Lacombe Roads is shuttered for that year. Clarice, the family matriarch of the house, is being kept safe in a nursing home. Things have changed. We can only hope that change for the better will come next year. The decision was made to put the customer's health in front of making money. I say that in jest, as I can tell you there is hardly any money to be made in the bar business. But that being said, we can't put a price on loving life, loving people, and having a good time while we still can. I will speak a little bit about things that I know that happened that I've witnessed on my own, and we lovingly refer to them as the ghosts of Maplewood. We feel from experiences that our visitor is friendly. One evening, Mom and I was coming home. We noticed that there was a light on in the garage behind the bar. I pulled up to one of the bay doors, and there was not only a light, but music. Not wanting to encounter a possible burglar, I went home and called Henry. He went over and checked. There was nothing happening. Another time, Henry called me and Jim Barrett out to the back of the bar and asked what we could see in the upstairs window. Jim and I both said that there's a light's been left on. Henry said, "There's no electricity leading to the upstairs." Later that evening, I checked as I was leaving. There was no light longer on. The musicians are guilty of blaming the ghosts when something happens with the sound system. That occurs often. At this point, I will talk a little bit about my mom, Clarice Kramer Ketteret Grinkovich. She started her work life at the Alpena Garment Factory at the age of 16. She became an excellent seamstress, following in the footsteps of her mother, Mary, and her 3 sisters. For a short time after Dad went to work at Besser Company, she would also drive the bus home because my dad was also a bus driver at the time. So Mom would drive the bus home for him. She's in the Guinness Book of World Records as the longest continuous bartender in the world, and she was named that in 2011. This was a suggestion by Shirley Dietland. She spearheaded getting the proof needed to submit Clarice's name for consideration. There are many, many accolades that will be photographed and can be read and seen, but I'll just name a few. The Alpena News, the Detroit Free Press, the Detroit News, CMU Radio, CMU Destination Michigan, Fox News of Cadillac, the Michigan Liquor Control Commission, Alpena Township, Alpena Chamber of Commerce, and WBKB-TV.
I never had a dull moment, I'll tell you. When I wasn't bartending, I was washing dishes or washing clothes or scrubbing floors.
Clarice Grinkovich became part of Maplewood Tavern, and before she knew it, she'd been behind the bar for 74 years.
I've never accepted tips through the years. I didn't feel like this should. I'd probably be rich now, you know? Probably wouldn't have saved it anyway. I'd have spent it.
You always want to know somebody that's famous. And so we were sitting here, my friends and I heard somebody up at the bar say to her, "How long have you been doing this, you know?" And she said, "Oh, I guess it's like 70 years. And I thought to myself, that's got to be a record of some kind.
Sure enough, Clarice became the Guinness World Record holder for longest career as a bartender in 2011 and still holds that record today. A bar full of history and a bartender who continues to make history.
It is just unbelievable in this little town of Alpena, Michigan, that you have a Guinness World Record holder at this bar. But she's here, bartending, getting your drink, whatever drink you want, you know. It's amazing. She loves it here.
And seeing how you've been here for 74 years, I mean, how much longer do you plan on bartending?
Probably till I'm 6 foot under. I'm only 95. I can't give up yet. It means a lot. It really does. That I've been able to stay here, had good health to be here, and hope to stay here if I can.
Even though Clarice doesn't keep tabs on how many beers she's actually poured, she can chalk another one up to her list. In Alpena, I'm Katie Boomgard for Fox 32 News at 10.
Many of the interviews that has traveled the airways and newspapers went across America. She is also on YouTube as a player on a video called Alpena Colada. We also made a family CD format in the year 2015. Mom was the lead singer in that family CD, and on the CD I was playing keyboard, my brother played guitar, and the singers, backup singers, was her daughter-in-law, Carolyn Shakusky, and her granddaughter, Marion Ketteret. She was a member of several organizations in Alpena, one being the Alpena Eagles, Auxiliary 1241, the VFW of Alpena, Trinity Episcopal Church, and the Rebekahs. I'll do a timeline right now from 2019 through 2021. The bar was closed due to COVID from October 2019 until it reopened after my brother passed away, with his two daughters at the helm, Marion and Melissa. June 2nd, 2021, Clarice's mom turns 102 years old. Her health is in decline and was evident that night. She was no longer a happy, healthy person, and she was ready to join the others that passed before her. On June 8th, Clarice's mom made her journey to a heavenly place that was waiting for her. Same year, 2021, September 17th, 15 weeks later, her son, Henry, my brother, passed away from heart disease, complications of diabetes. Henry did not leave a will. I would have been the next one to take the reins. I never wanted the business, so it follows that Henry's daughters, Melissa Carteret-Gapsky and Marion Carteret, will eventually have their names on the license. As of this writing, the powers that be have not moved to do that paperwork, so we wait. Legally, the business can be ran in both Clarice's and Henry's names until such time as the legal paperwork can be finished. 2022. The opening of Maplewood is in the hands of Henry's family, along with many friends that work to bring the building out of decline. Started as of now, March 2023, the work continues. Many people have come back as our faithful customers. Musicians have been on stage every Friday and Saturday nights to help the gals get established. All Hands on Deck has been the swan song for this old treasure of a building that I call an old ship, and that will be celebrating in 2024 its 100th birthday. This is a personal note from me. I'm referring to as the person who remains at nearly 81 years of age, the history keeper of the family and this family business. I've done my best to recall and to tell what I know.
In 1924, Henry Peter and his brothers built the bar. Was there a reason they decided to do this?
Well, that was a time when there was so many different dance halls open all around Long Lake in town, and people would go, and I didn't mention before, they paid 25 cents to dance 3 dances. So I think grandfather saw a way to make some money, and that's why they opened it as they did as a dance hall. I can only go with the 1924 date. I know this. It didn't take him very long to put the place up with the help of his brothers and neighbors. So we're just going to have to go with the date 1924, unless I could find somewhere in the writings at the Alpena Township Hall. Might be able to figure that out.
What were some of the things that they encountered as they were building it?
Well, they didn't have the power saws and things to cut up the lumber. I do believe that along the way, over the years, as we cleared away walls and things to do upgrades, it was found that a lot of the wood in the place was all hand sawn, possibly taken right from the woods near Maplewood, because my grandma and grandfather also owned several parcels of acreage that they could cut those things down and use them to build the bar. I'm only guessing at this point, but it would make sense to me. I've watched as other things were added on to the original bar after it was open, and that's exactly what they did. They would go to the acreage, cut down whatever they needed, get it planed, and use it to add on to the bar.
Was there a lot of parties and a lot of, well, you kind of talked about that, a lot of parties.
They're referring to parties that were at Maplewood. Absolutely, there were right up until probably the late 40s. I can remember private parties there, weddings, anniversary dances, and there were private parties even at later times. But Maplewood, right from the beginning, was a gathering place, whether you were paying 25 cents to dance 3 dances or you were attending someone's wedding. I've heard stories of people that's come up to me and said that they had the band that played at Maplewood for the dances play for their wedding. So yes, there was plenty of parties, and as history tells us, right up to this date, there's still plenty of parties.
Yes, for sure. You had brought up earlier about the letters of article with the township, and tell us a story about the, I don't know if you want to call it a tiff between the neighbors and them wanting to build and where they wanted to go with the business.
Well, sadly, this is part and parcel of the history of Maplewood that I just learned the very day that my brother Henry passed away. When Grandma, your grandmother, Marion and Missy's grandmother, my mother, Clarice, passed away, I inherited all of her paperwork that was stashed here, there, and everywhere in a safe, in a strong box, in a file cabinet. And I came across paperwork that sent me kind of sideways because I was already working on the history of Maplewood. And I found a paper that said that Grandpa Henry Peter had applied to the Township of Alpena for a dance permit. Now, wait a minute. He's asking for a dance permit. It's prohibition. We're not serving drinks. But what's going on here? We've already been in business since 1924. So I called a friend of mine who for years was the clerk of Alpena Township. And she went with me. She gave him a heads up that we were coming, and they pulled the original handwritten minutes from those very meetings where Grandpa applied. His character, I have his character references, and he was given a permit. The next meeting, it was taken away. So I'm reading on in these journals from the meetings, and it appeared that what happened was some of the neighbors complained, and I'm not going to name them, but I do know their names. And so they denied Grandpa to have a dance permit. That was the time when he was also having issues, health issues. And he continued to run the bar. They didn't give him a citation. But in the interim, he passed away. So now I'm looking at the minutes from the meetings after Grandpa passed away. Now you've got this young widow by the name of Orpha, Grandma Orpha, in front of the board asking for the same permit. They granted it to her. She could now also ask to sell beer, wine, and she did, and they were able to, through the state of Michigan, to get a permit. Prohibition is over with, and get a permit to sell beer and wine and soda. So I think the ironic part of that particular day, September 17th, 2021, I went to the phone several times to share this information with my brother Henry, who was at loggerheads with the state of Michigan at that point, trying to move the inherited business from his mother into his name. And he was greeted by roadblocks, I gotta tell you. Every time I went to the phone to pick it up and call my brother, something got in my way and I never got to call him and tell him, hey bro, you think you got problems? Your grandfather did too. Okay, not his dad. My dad never had a problem. Graham had that all set up and that all went very, very well. But I think it's ironic to think the issues that was giving my brother very upset also was part of the history of his grandfather, who, yes, dropped dead of a heart attack, just like his grandson did, and his son in between.
Tell us a little about the history of the musicians through the years.
I have did a timeline on the musicians, and I will be reading that as best I can to tell you how that all worked out, because there was a time that music simply was a jam session, or maybe a couple of musicians that would come in on Friday nights and sit at the table and play some music. But I will be reading an actual timeline of the way it played out with music at Maplewood.
I remember as probably a two-year-old child, I didn't know it was a bar. It was Grandma's home.
Well, when you were referring to the people that lived there, my Henry's wife, Carolyn, my brother's daughters, Melissa. She was a year old and before her dad ever seen her, because her dad was in Vietnam. And she was raised there for her first year. And Marion came along, and they were now at their own home, but she spent a lot of time with her grandmother. Also, all my siblings, some of them moved back in and brought their wives and their children with them. Maplewood, for a long time after I moved out in 1965, was really quite the revolving door for people that lived there in the house part. And to this day, it's amazing to me how many people still think that is a house. It's just a big white house. So I've taken, as people that know me, I've taken it to a different level, and I call it an old ship. There's no one living there now other than the ghosts of Maplewood. Maybe someday again it will be, but right now it's in a good place. It's been taken to a place that let's get real, 2 years ago it was falling into the ground. The ship was not floating real good, but it is now. And thankfully, in this day and age, this is a good thing about social media, that we can get the word out there about it and what's happening, and watch their faces when they come through the door. And they look up and they see the picture of Henry and his mom, Clarice.
We also want to remember the musicians that came before us, and there's plenty of them. But one of the ones that left us in 1964 was my dad, Henry Vernon Carteret. He wasn't the builder of this place, his father was. The floor you're looking at was built here in 1924. Okay? When Dad took over, he also was a musician in and around Alpena. Played every Friday and Saturday night and Sunday afternoon at what is now the Kelly Venture Inn. It was the Red Top. He had an original Gibson Sunburst guitar that for some reason found legs and went out of here and took it. Someone took it from my brother, and probably sold it. But before that, Daddy bought a guitar, and it's a K. 2 years ago, my brother put it in the hands of Larry Doust and said, Larry, can you fix this? Larry told me Monday that baby was played hard. He's standing in front of it right now, and tonight I'm going to videotape it because I said before, we're doing a history of Maplewood. Maplewood's going to be 100 years old next year. I like to refer to her, if you read my Facebook page, as the ship, and she is. And at the helm now is my oldest niece, Henry's oldest daughter, Melissa Grace Ketterat-Gavsky. And returning to Alpena from a long stay away from various places, and especially Phoenix, Arizona and thereabouts, his youngest daughter, Mary and Madeline Ketterat. So at this point, with the video running, that will be encompassed into a whole lot of stuff that we're coming up with. Pictures and the history. And I've done the history of this guitar as best as I can. Because as my mother said to me one time, when you're gone, Carol, the history of this place is gone. The history of the place, right up until losing Henry, has been done. And Mother got to hear it. And she put her seal of approval on it. So, without further ado, Larry, if you'll grab that beautiful K guitar that you've refinished, rebound, and eventually we're going to have Glenn Anderson play it, not me tonight, but you need a pretty big hand. Look at this thing. She's a she's early 1950s. It's a K guitar. It was bought here in Alpena, and some people's going to remember, I bet you will, Marie, a gentleman by the name of Harold Hike owned a toy store in Alpena. My dad bought that from him. And that's the original case that it came in, and I remember the day they brought it, Dad brought it in the back door, put the case on the table, opened it up and looked at my mother and said, who the hell puts a pink lining in a guitar case? And he got used to it. That one's been rode hard and put away wet too. So here it goes to Missy and Marion to keep. I will babysit it as long as I can. Eventually Gary Cahoon is going to build a case for it so that if people will be able to see it. But trust me, it's not going to spend all of its time here. It'll spend time with me. And when I'm gone, the girls will take control of it.
I believe it's the one he's holding the picture.
Yeah, Dad is holding the guitar in the picture. So, put your hands together. I've talked Larry into coming back some evening. Let me just say some more. This guitar sitting here, you dancers need to look at it. Larry did this guitar for Henry. It's got inlaid cubic zirconia in it. Larry did all the work on putting those cubic zirconias in here. When he got done, he told Henry, don't ask me to do this again. So Larry's going to come back some Friday night. We'll keep you posted, and he's going to rock and roll on that baby, and we're going to follow him. Put your hands together and thank him. And thank you for being quiet. Thank you for coming. You have made my night. And I'm going to give, this one can talk too.
I would like to thank everyone for coming to our first night. It far met our expectations. I want to thank you for being very patient. We're all kind of learning again for the second season. I'm so excited to have you guys back, and I promise as the weekends go by, we'll get better and better and better. But please come back. I hope everybody enjoyed themselves tonight. We're super proud of what we have here. And enjoy the heat and the air that we produced this season to keep us nice and cool. I had it on today and I forgot to turn it off because I got busy behind the bar and everybody's like all wet. I'm like, oh, neat. So I want to thank you all because without you guys here, we wouldn't be able to do this.
We couldn't do it.
So it's very important to us. And we love you all. Thank you.
I want a girl just like the girl that married dear old Dad. If old Dad could only see me now. Want a girl just like the girl that married dear old Dad.
I know when Missy and I first opened it, I didn't know that it was really, would it really be my passion? Never thought I would be a bar owner. But as I sat and looked out and heard people dancing and singing, I understood why Grandma loved it so much. Why was it the same feeling for Grandma?
We're talking about the new owners of Maplewood, very, very close at this time to getting their names on the license. That's been worked on. We're talking about how her granddaughters, Marion and Melissa, feel about being bar owner, and does it correlate with the way their grandmother, Clarice? That was her love. There's no doubt about it. We still have time to figure out what it's going to become for Melissa and Marion. Right now, it's really, they're liking it a lot. They love to watch people have a good time. They love to watch how the place has been worked on and brought up to some of today's standards, and yet a lot of things have been left to be the way they were when Henry took over, and almost made it, you might just as well say, a museum. I'll be referring to that also in another writing that I've put together, because trying to cover all of it in one setting, I've taken time to put together how the music and how things have came to where they are of this day in May of 2023.
Oh, please me.